Welcome. Let your body settle completely now. Let the weight of the day fall away like water from a lotus leaf. Let your breath become slow and soft. Tonight, I'm going to tell you stories about speaking and listening, about knowing when words help and when they harm, about the wisdom of silence and the danger of talking too much. These are tales from the Panchatantra, stories of tortoises and geese, elephants and sparrows, dreamers and birds, creatures who teach us about pride, about trust, about the choices we make with our voices. But tonight, these stories are simply here to carry you towards sleep. There are 4 tales woven together. You don't need to follow every detail. You don't need to remember the lessons. Just let the stories flow over you like evening settling on water. The first story begins now, by a lotus pond at the edge of a forest, where a tortoise lived who could never keep quiet. There was a lotus pond, beautiful, peaceful, the kind of place where the water was so still it reflected the sky perfectly, where lotus flowers opened in shades of pink and white, where dragonflies hovered and fish moved in lazy circles beneath the surface. At the bottom of this pond lived a tortoise, old. His shell was dark green and weathered. His movements were slow and deliberate. He had lived in this pond for so many years he could remember when the lotus plants were first planted, when the pond was dug by humans who had long since moved away. The tortoise was content. He had everything he needed: food, shelter, the gentle rhythm of the seasons. But he had one flaw. He loved to talk. He talked constantly, to the fish, to the frogs, to anyone who would listen and many who wouldn't. He told stories about the past. He gave advice no one asked for. He commented on everything: the weather, the taste of the water weeds, the way the lotus flowers opened, the patterns the clouds made. Most creatures avoided him, not because he was unkind, but because once he started talking, he never stopped. One day, 2 geese arrived at the pond. They were traveling south for the season, looking for a place to rest. They landed on the water and began to drink. The tortoise saw them and immediately swam over. "Welcome, welcome to my pond. I've lived here for years, decades actually, and I can tell you everything about this place. The best spots for food, the clearest water, the warmest rocks for basking. Have you traveled far? Where are you from? Where are you going?" The geese looked at each other. One of them, the more patient of the 2, smiled politely. "Thank you. We're traveling south. We'll only stay for the night." "South? How wonderful. I've always wanted to travel. You know, I've thought about it many times. If I could fly, I would see the world. I would visit mountains and rivers and distant lands. But I'm stuck here, have been my whole life. This pond is all I know. But it's a good pond, a very good pond. Let me tell you about—" "We should rest," the other goose interrupted gently. "It's been a long flight. Of course. Rest is important. I rest all the time. Well, not all the time, but regularly. Usually in the mornings or afternoons. Sometimes evenings. It depends on—" The geese swam to the far side of the pond. The next morning, the geese prepared to leave. They stretched their wings. They preened their feathers. They said goodbye to the pond. The tortoise swam over quickly. "Leaving already? So soon? But you just arrived. Well, I suppose you have places to be. Safe travels. Though I must say, it's a shame you can't stay longer. I have so many stories to tell. Have I told you about the time the pond nearly dried up, or the winter when it froze completely, or the—" One of the geese paused. "You've lived here your whole life?" "Yes, Every day, every season, I know everything about. Would you like to leave? The goose asked. The tortoise stopped mid-sentence. Leave? Me? But I can't fly. We know, the goose said, but we've been thinking we could carry you. The tortoise's eyes widened. Carry me? How? We find a stick. You hold the middle in your mouth. We each hold one end in our beaks. We fly together, carrying you between us. The tortoise's heart raced with excitement. I could see the world, mountains, rivers, other ponds. Yes, but there's one condition. Anything. The goose looked at him seriously. You must not speak, not one word. If you open your mouth, you'll let go of the stick and you'll fall. The tortoise nodded eagerly. I won't speak. I promise. Not a word. You can trust me. I know when to be quiet. Well, usually I talk a lot, but when it's important, I can definitely. Starting now, the other goose said firmly. From this moment, you must be silent. The tortoise closed his mouth. They found a strong stick. The tortoise bit down on the center. The geese took their positions, each holding one end, and they flew. It was extraordinary. The tortoise had never been above the pond, had never seen the world from the sky, had never felt wind rushing past him or watched the ground fall away below. They rose higher, over the forest, over fields, over villages. The tortoise wanted to shout with joy, wanted to comment on everything he saw, wanted to tell the geese how amazing this was, how grateful he felt, how this was the greatest moment of his life. But he stayed silent. He kept his jaws clamped tight on the stick. They flew for hours. The sun moved across the sky. The landscape changed below them. Rivers, hills, more forests. And then they flew over a village. Children were playing in a courtyard. They looked up and saw the strange sight, a tortoise in the sky, held by two geese. Look, one child shouted. A flying tortoise. Other children ran over. They pointed. They laughed. How is that possible? Is he magic? Are the geese his servants? He must be a king. The tortoise heard them. Pride swelled in his chest. They think I'm special. They think I'm a king. He wanted to tell them, wanted to explain, wanted to correct them. I'm not magic. I'm just clever. The geese are my friends, not my servants. And yes, perhaps I am a bit special for thinking of this plan. The words built up inside him, pressure growing. He tried to resist, but pride is a powerful force. One child called up, is he a king or just a lucky tortoise? Just lucky? Just? The tortoise couldn't help himself. He opened his mouth to respond. I am not just. The stick fell from his jaws, and he fell, fast, tumbling through the air, the ground rushing up to meet him. The geese cried out. They dove after him, but they couldn't reach him in time. He hit the ground in the center of the village square, hard. His shell cracked, not completely shattered but damaged. Lines spread across it like rivers on a map. His legs were hurt. His head was bruised. The children ran over. The geese landed beside him. Are you alive? One goose asked. The tortoise groaned. I'm alive. Why did you speak? The other goose said, not angry, just sad. We warned you. We told you what would happen. The tortoise closed his eyes. I know. I couldn't help it. They called me lucky, just lucky. I wanted them to know I was more than that. The geese were quiet. Pride made you speak, one said gently. And pride made you fall. Words have weight, sometimes more than we can carry. They helped him to the edge of the village, to a small pond, not as beautiful as his home, but it had water, and that was enough. The tortoise lived there for the rest of his days, His shell never fully healed. The cracks remained, a permanent reminder. He still talked. That never changed. It was his nature. But he learned, finally, that some moments require silence. That there are times when opening your mouth means losing everything. That pride is a heavy burden, and words can make you fall. The day moved toward evening. The light softened. Shadows grew long. The world took on the golden quality that comes just before dusk. And in a forest near the village, the second story was beginning. There was an elephant, huge, old. His tusks were yellowed. His skin was wrinkled and scarred. He moved through the forest slowly, deliberately, eating leaves from high branches, drinking from streams, existing in the patient way that elephants do. One day, he came to a part of the forest he'd never visited before. There was a tree, large, its branches spreading wide, and in that tree was a nest, a small nest made of twigs and grass, and inside the nest were eggs, sparrow eggs, 4 of them, tiny, blue-speckled, fragile. The mother sparrow was sitting on them, keeping them warm. The father sparrow was nearby, gathering food. The elephant walked past the tree. He didn't see the nest, didn't know it was there. He was simply walking, his mind on other things. But as he passed, his massive leg brushed against the tree trunk. The tree shook, the nest trembled, and one egg fell. It dropped from the nest, hit a branch, bounced, and landed on the ground. Cracked, broken, the tiny life inside lost. The mother sparrow cried out, a sound of pure anguish. The elephant stopped. He looked back. He saw the broken egg. He saw the sparrows. He hadn't meant to. It was an accident. But the damage was done. The father sparrow flew down from the tree. He looked at the elephant. "You killed our child," he said, his voice small but filled with grief. The elephant felt something he rarely felt. Shame. "I didn't know. I didn't see. I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't bring back what's lost," the sparrow said. The elephant nodded slowly. "You're right. It doesn't. Is there anything I can do?" The sparrow looked at him, at this massive creature who could crush him with one step, who had, carelessly, destroyed his family. "Leave," the sparrow said. "Just leave, and be more careful." The elephant left, but the father sparrow was not satisfied with just words. Grief turned to anger. Anger turned to a need for justice. He went to his friends, a woodpecker, a fly, a frog, small creatures, powerless alone. "Will you help me?" he asked. "Against an elephant?" the woodpecker said. "How?" "Together," the sparrow said. "We're small, but we're clever, and together we can do what none of us can do alone." They made a plan. The fly would buzz around the elephant's eyes when he was resting in the heat of the day. The elephant would close his eyes to block the annoying sound. Then the woodpecker would peck at his closed eyes, not deeply, just enough to hurt, enough to blind him temporarily. Then the frog would sit beside a deep pit in the forest and croak. The elephant, blind and in pain, would follow the sound, thinking it was leading him to water. And he would fall. It was cruel. It was dangerous. But grief makes creatures do things they wouldn't normally consider. The next day, they executed their plan. The fly buzzed. The elephant closed his eyes in annoyance. The woodpecker struck, sharp beak against sensitive eyes. The elephant roared in pain. His eyes swelled shut. He stumbled through the forest, blind, confused, in agony. And then he heard it, the croak of a frog. Water. He needed water to cool his eyes, to ease the pain. He followed the sound, closer, closer, and he fell into the pit, deep, too deep to climb out, his massive body wedged between the walls. He called out, but no one came. The forest was empty. Night fell, then day, then night again. The sparrows flew to the edge of the pit. They looked down at the elephant. He was dying, slowly, unable to escape, unable to call for help that would come. The mother sparrow spoke softly. "This is what it feels like, to lose something you can't get back." The elephant looked up at them with his swollen, damaged eyes. "I'm sorry," he said again. "I truly am." "We know," the father sparrow said, "but sorry isn't enough. It never is." They flew away. The elephant died in the pit 3 days later, and the sparrows returned to their nest with the 3 remaining eggs. They had gotten their justice, their revenge, but it didn't bring back what was lost. It didn't ease the grief. It just added more death to the world. And both the sparrows and the elephant learned the same lesson in different ways. That carelessness has consequences. That small creatures have power when they work together. And that revenge, while it might feel justified, never truly heals. It only multiplies sorrow. The evening deepened. The first stars appeared. The moon rose, pale and round, casting silver light across the world. And in a village beneath that moon, the 3rd story was reaching its quiet conclusion. There was a poor Brahmin. He lived in a small hut at the edge of the village. He had almost nothing: a clay pot, a wooden bowl, a thin blanket, a bag of rice that was nearly empty. He survived on charity, on the kindness of others, on whatever people would give. One day, a generous merchant gave him a gift: a pot of flour, good flour, enough to last for weeks if he was careful. The Brahmin took the flour home. He hung the pot from a rope in his hut, suspended from a wooden beam so rats couldn't reach it. And then he lay down on his mat. He looked at the pot of flour, and he began to dream. Not sleep dreams, waking dreams. With this flour, I'll make bread. I'll sell the bread in the market. With the money, I'll buy more flour, and eggs, and milk. I'll make sweets, expensive sweets that rich people will buy. His mind raced faster. With that money, I'll buy goats, a whole herd. They'll give milk. I'll sell the milk. I'll become wealthy. Faster still. When I'm wealthy, I'll buy land. I'll build a house, a big house. I'll marry. I'll have servants. I'll have children, sons. They'll respect me. They'll obey me. He imagined himself as the father, stern, respected, powerful. And if they disobey, I'll discipline them. I'll use my staff like this. He grabbed his walking stick. He swung it through the air to demonstrate how he would discipline his imaginary sons. The stick hit the rope. The rope broke. The pot of flour fell. It shattered on the ground. Flour everywhere, spilling, wasted, gone. The Brahmin stared at it. All his dreams, all his plans, all the wealth and respect and family he'd imagined, gone. Because he'd been so caught up in the future that he'd destroyed the present. He sat on his mat for a long time, looking at the spilled flour, and he learned what many learn too late: that dreams are beautiful, but they're not real, that the future is made of wishes and air, and that if you spend all your time living in what might be, you'll lose what already is. The Brahmin swept up what flour he could save. It wasn't much, but it was real. It was here. It was now. And that, he finally understood, was all that ever matters. The night was deep now. The village slept. The forest slept. Only the stars remained awake, watching. And somewhere far away, by the shore of the vast ocean, the 4th and final story was drawing to its close. There was a flock of birds. They lived in the trees along the beach. Every day, they would fly over the ocean, diving for fish, riding the wind, living in the salt air and spray. Among them was a pair, mates. They had built a nest on a low branch overlooking the water. The female laid eggs, 2 of them. She sat on them carefully, keeping them warm, waiting for them to hatch. But there was danger. The ocean, the waves, the tides. One night, while the birds slept, a storm came. The wind howled, the rain fell in sheets, and the waves grew enormous. They crashed against the shore, higher than usual, higher than safe. A massive wave reached up and swept through the trees. It took the nest, the eggs, everything. When morning came and the storm had passed, the female bird discovered what had happened. Her eggs were gone, taken by the ocean. She wept, and then she grew angry. "The ocean took my children," she said to her mate. "The ocean must give them back." Her mate tried to comfort her. "The ocean doesn't listen. The ocean doesn't care. It's just water. It doesn't think." "Then I'll make it listen," she said. She flew to the water's edge. She stood on the sand, and she began to drink. Sip by sip, mouthful by mouthful, she drank the ocean. She would drink it dry. She would empty it. She would force it to give back what it took. Her mate tried to stop her. "You can't drink the ocean. It's impossible. You're one small bird. The ocean is endless." "I don't care," she said between sips. "I will drink until I get my children back, or until I die trying." Days passed. She drank and drank. The ocean didn't shrink, didn't change, didn't even notice. But other birds noticed. They flew down. They asked what she was doing. She told them. Some laughed, some pitied her, but some understood. "We'll help," they said. And they began to drink too. More birds joined, then more. A flock, then flocks. Hundreds of birds, all drinking, all trying to empty the ocean that had taken something from one of their own. It was still impossible, but it was no longer futile, because impossible things done together become something else. They become statements. They become protests. They become the refusal to accept loss quietly. The gods noticed. They looked down and saw these birds trying to empty the ocean. And one god, moved by their determination, descended. "Stop," the god said gently. "You cannot empty the ocean, but your courage has been seen. Your love has been witnessed." The god reached into the water, and somehow, impossibly, the eggs returned, whole, unbroken. They were returned to the nest, and in time, they hatched. The birds stopped drinking. They flew back to their trees. The ocean remained, vast, unchanged, indifferent. But the birds had learned something, that loss doesn't always stay lost, that impossible things sometimes happen when courage refuses to surrender, that together, even the smallest creatures can make the gods take notice, and that sometimes the attempt is enough. Even when the ocean cannot be emptied, even when the task is impossible, the trying itself is the triumph. And so all 4 stories end. The tortoise who spoke when he should have stayed silent, the sparrows who taught the elephant about consequences, the Brahmin who lost his dreams by living in them, the birds who tried to empty the ocean. 4 tales, 4 lessons about speaking and listening, about action and consequences, about dreams and reality, about loss and courage. Let these stories rest in you now. Let your body completely release. Let your thoughts dissolve like mist in morning sun. Let every last bit of tension float away. You don't need to speak. You don't need to plan. You don't need to empty any oceans tonight. You just need to rest. The pond is still. The forest is quiet. The ocean continues its eternal rhythm. The stars watch in silence. And you, finally, can let go. Sleep now. Let the tortoise rest in his pond. Let the sparrows settle in their nest. Let the Brahmin sweep his floor. Let the birds return to their trees. And let you, at last, find peace. Rest.